The quiet chaos driving me mad. Chapter 9. A day passed and I had either been messaged or called by Sam 6 times. There was a call during the evening of the date, a text and a call during the morning after the date, another text and call during the afternoon after the date, and a final text during the evening on the day after the date. I awoke on the second day after the date in the early morning hours. My schedule of getting up as soon as I could being no different from the days prior. I stepped out of my room and prepared a bowl of cereal for myself in the kitchen. It was while pouring the milk that I had heard the sound of light footsteps. I stepped over to the living room and saw Sarah while she was walking through it, her rubbing her eyes repeatedly. "Do you want something to eat?" I asked her. She nodded her head and I moved over to the cabinet to take the cereal out again and felt the tapping at my back. "I want to make it myself," she said. I gave her the cereal and retrieved the bowl from the cabinet, which was too high for her to reach. While I was doing the latter act, she removed the milk from the refrigerator. Following her completion of the cereal, we left the kitchen and returned to our respective rooms, me sitting to myself, before hearing the faint sound of steps in the hallway. My father then walked into the room, wearing his formal attire of a suit and a tie, and some shoes that looked as if they'd originated from the era of the Jacksonian democracy. "This is quite a sight," I said, covering the lower half of my face with my hand. "Why are you staring?" he asked. "From the ankle down, you've never appeared more outdated." He removed his shoes with haste and threw them into the hallway. "Now, back to serious business," he said, slamming my room door closed. "This woman's been contacting you a lot." "Yeah. Somebody told me she's either called or texted you 4 times since that date." "I've counted to 6. Well, do yourself a favor and don't respond to her for a while. Let some time pass where you just don't say anything." "I've rarely tried that before." "Give her an entire day with nothing back from you. She'll be convinced you've got priorities to handle." I nodded my head and he walked out of the room, closing my door behind himself. I moved over to my phone while it rested against my desk and sent a message to Trey. "My father wants me to ignore a woman that's actually giving me attention," it read. "Doesn't make any sense to me." I walked over to my room and went to the kitchen. After coming back to it with some orange juice, I turned my phone to see the notifications. "That's what I've heard too," Trey wrote. "I think it's a load of crap. Why would someone get off on being ignored?" I asked. "Isn't that the same way Rivka was?" I leaned back on my bed, where I'd been stationed since the back and forth commenced, and thought about the time roughly 2 months ago that Rivka and myself were engaging in a conversation. "So in the month and a half that we've been speaking," I said, "is there something I've done that you don't like?" "So much attention," she answered, "like the calling every day thing." "What?" "Just us talking every day." I hung up the phone on her. "Where'd you go?" she asked in the text. "I'm going to implement what attracts you, less contact." "No, it's fine." She proceeded to call me. "What do you want?" I asked. "You shouldn't have been offended," she said. "You are bothered by actively speaking to a person with whom you at one point considered marrying, a state of life that will require you to see and speak to the person every day." She laughed. "Yeah, it's contradictory, but I don't think it's bad," she said. "I'm sure you don't," I replied. "Most people who text while driving wouldn't term it as a serious distraction until they get into an accident." "What's the analogy there?" "You're too far gone to realize how dumb what you just said was, and the only way you'll ever change your mind on this is when you realize it's messing up your life." Her tone shifted to an angered pitch. "You don't know anything about how my life is going to go," she told me. "I can surmise how it will be based off of what you've told me," I said. "There'll probably be a number of men that you will meet after me who will show an interest and who you'll find ways to lessen the chances of your attraction and manifesting into anything. You'll complain about where someone lives, even if they offer to come to you. You'll whine about a difference of religion, even if it doesn't bother them. And you'll say a guy is giving you too much attention, all the while complaining about being overlooked by men and having some desire to be treated that way. You don't know any of that for sure." I hung up on her. In the present time, I had been recapping the story to Trey in a few sentences long text that made him one of only 3 people I could send such messages to, and expect them to read the whole thing. "How come you hung up on her?" he asked. "Because it was what she wanted," I wrote. "Remember, she got turned on by being treated as an afterthought. What happened the next time you spoke to her? That wasn't for about a week. The only reason I ever interacted with her again was because she sent me some message about how she hoped I was doing well and how unfortunate it was it ended that way. My hand became tired and I called Trey, who had his phone ringing for several moments and giving me anticipation to see if he would pick up or not. I think I might have been told this before I forgot. He said, I think I might have been told this before I forgot, he said. Like I said, I don't expect you to always remember the things I tell you. I said, have you noticed you bring up Rivka more than any of the other ones? I did a while ago. She must have meant something to you. She had enormous potential that was briefly tapped into, and we conversed for hours at a time without being annoyed by the other person's presence, and she decided to waste all of it away for reasons she constructed as barriers for us. So how do you remember her? You seem to think she was the best you're ever going to get. Her legacy is that of someone outwardly having everything you want, internally having everything you want, but not allowing themselves to consider the possibilities of trying a person that doesn't meet their desires to a fault. I never cared about her being Jewish or living in another country or caring about seeing her family. I just wanted to be happy, and that's what she made me in times before she completely turned down my proposals weeks following its beginnings, and after that, when we would just talk. How come you didn't keep her as someone to talk to? Because it was stagnant. So that means when we had our final conversation, a couple of days had passed since we last spoke. And she was sending me messages every day for half a week, either apologizing or asking if I was ignoring her. I called her up and called for it to stop and confronted her over not trying to advance our relationship while clinging to having these dialogues. She didn't answer. She didn't see anything wrong with what she was doing, but that didn't do it. Then what did? I told her that I was tired of things being the way that they were, and she admitted that she had wanted to ask me about something. I asked her what it was, and she said it didn't matter anymore in this dreary, I want you to feel bad for me tone. I asked her again, what was it that she wanted to talk about that she felt was so important to ask me about, and she wouldn't budge. Then she said she was going to hang up on me and we were never going to speak again, something that she had said several times at this point. I then hung up and blocked her on every single website that I knew she was on and could contact me from. Whoa, she had a global block. That whole interaction, however small it was the perfect bookend for our relationship. Me trying to get her to do something that took her out of her comfort zone, like actually committing to a guy instead of just complaining about them, or at least communicate with me instead of doing the same failed thing again, and her clinging to past strategies such as self-pity and proclamations that didn't amount to anything as a way of diverting from the goal of mine on hand. Do you ever miss her? I miss the times when we could talk about things that I've only seen me be able to speak with 2 or 3 other women out of all the ones I've talked to. So that's a half no. That's entirely a no with admissions to what was good about our interactions. I can't go back to a person who wants to live in the present while making predictions of the future that are tailored to fit her own narrative. There was a moment of silence. You're going to have to explain that one to me, Trey said. I get that you were saying she was taking the future and messing with it, but the narrative thing. So her stance was that someone would or could come around that would be better for her and another woman would be better for me, I told him. But this same person also stresses that nothing I'm doing presently, such as offering her a schedule of how much we could speak before trying to do anything together, is a guarantee to better our futures, which is correct, but she's doing it in such a way to undercut the fact that I'm trying. I think I get it now. I couldn't keep torturing myself with the idea that I was going to speak with her for years and not see anything different. One of her objections to my proposals, which at one point was just a date, was that we had barely known each other for a day before I speculated on what could happen. Here we were at the end of 3 months of speaking, and she had moved to saying that I was not her type while saying that I was her type, but all the external factors ruling me out as anything other than her special online entertainment. Do you think cutting her off was your way of trying to punish her? If it was, I didn't mean it. I saw it more as me finally feeling sorrier for myself than her, and I wasn't going to keep rewarding her for contributing to making me feel that way by still corresponding with her. There was a knock at my door, one that was striking the lower half of the side unseen by me. I stepped over and opened it. How come you haven't told me about you and that lady? Corey asked. There wasn't a need to, I said, closing the door in front of him. He knocked on the other side. I stepped over to my bed and laid on the mattress, Corey coming into the room right after. Talk to me, Corey said. I bet you probably told Sarah everything. That's not true, I told him. But you told Mom and Dad. I had to. They subsidized me. Then subsidize me on what happened with the lady. You're not properly using context clues. That word has nothing to do with telling someone something other than to give you a rationale. Corey ran out of the room. Sarah, he screamed from the hallway. Augustus won't tell me what happened with him and his lady friend. I breathed a sigh and closed my eyes. He was either going to get her attention or that of my parents. There was a loud slamming of my bedroom door next, an oddity since it had been left open. Then I felt someone smash their self against my chest, and I opened my eyes to see Sarah laying on top of me. How come you won't be nice to Corey, she asked. I've been very nice, I told her. He says you haven't. Don't believe everything you hear. Can you get off me? She threw her hands over my own. No, she shouted in a playful voice. Now I've got you in my trap, so you have to answer all my questions to get out. I looked at her disapprovingly, and she continued to stare at me with this smile that showed her she apparently wasn't getting what I was distributing. My father walked into the room next. Sarah, he called her. You're hurting him. She's not, I said, but she is annoying him. Sarah moved herself from my chest and stepped over to the side of my father. I can't believe he's gone, Daddy, she told him. What? My father said. He used to like play wrestling. Okay, how does that mean he's gone? This thing with these ladies makes him act different, like all moody and not wanting to play and telling you to go away and laying in his bed and pretending to be half dead. I rolled my eyes. Any response, son? My father asked. She's trying to insult me into responding to her, I told him. It's working. I'm acknowledging it, but I'm not trying to argue against it. That's what you want me to do, and that's what I won't do. My father lifted my sister into his arms and closed the door behind him, the silent gesture contrasting with Corey and what he had made when he was in the same position. My cell phone went off and I could see the notification had been formed. How come you won't speak to me anymore? Sam asked in a text. Did I do something wrong? I placed my hand over my mouth and let out a short and low volume laugh.